Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever and wherever you're watching or listening. This is the Stokastic NHL DFS Strategy Show, and I am your surprise host for today, Michael Clifford. Josh is not here today. Just had something he had to go take care of. Couldn't get out of it. He will be back on Saturday as we have another show on Saturday. No show tomorrow, of course. There's only 2 games, I think, on the NHL slate. But we are here breaking down this monster 13-game slate in the NHL here tonight. Of course, we are sponsored by BetMGM. We have a very potent, let's say, giveaway through MGM that we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. Real quick, just want to give a shout out to BGI Domer in our Discord chat. Had a huge night last night. Using the Leafs double centers, John Tavares and Austin Matthews. Tavares, of course, had a hat trick, had 4 points in total for a huge fantasy night. Austin Matthews got on the board. He had a goal. I think he had a goal and assist with 8 shots. So pretty good night for Toronto. A very good night for BGI Domer. So congrats to you again on a pretty big hit, taking down the kick save and the forecheck. Attaboy. Let's hope we can pull something off like that again here tonight. Before we get too much further, if you guys could, please give us a like and subscribe if you have not already. Those thumbs up and those subscriptions help keep our shows going and help keep shows coming in various other sports. The MMA guys were on just before us, of course. NBA in full swing, NFL in full swing. There's still some baseball to talk about too. I suppose you can't get no hit every night, so maybe we'll get some more runs in Game 5. But we are here to talk about the NHL here tonight. Of course, as I said, we have 13 games on this slate here. Let's just jump right in. We'll get to our first one. Vegas has a 3.4 implied goal total. They're going into Ottawa. The Ottawa Senators have a 3.1 implied goal total. There is some important news on the Ottawa side here. They did switch up their centers. Remember, Josh Norris looks like he may be out for the rest of the season. That's kind of a hit to them. Thankfully, they went and stocked up on wingers, and they have a couple nice young centers in their mix already with Tim Stützle and Shane Pinto. They've moved Shane Pinto to what I'm calling the top line with Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson. The ice time doesn't always work out that way because Alex DeBrincat has been playing a lot lately, like 20, 21 minutes a night. So I guess DeBrincat, Stützle, and Giroux would kind of be considered the top line here tonight, though I guess it is just a 1A, 1B situation. There isn't really a lot to talk about in terms of numbers for these lines because obviously these are brand new lines. Shane Pinto hasn't played much in the NHL, was on the third line for for most of this season until Josh Norris got hurt. Tim Stützle obviously has not played with DeBrincat and Giroux much. One thing I did want to point out about Stützle, we talked on the last show that we had with Ottawa. I think it was Saturday night, although it doesn't take long for all the days to start blending together when you're in deep in the NHL season, as we're starting to get as we're a month in now. One thing I wanted to mention about Tim Stützle, and I'm going to bring it up real quick here on our screen share, is there's a guy on Twitter I follow. His name's Corey Snaister. As far as I know, he's the only person that widely tracks the NHL. A lot more than just shots or scoring chances or whatever. He tracks zone entries, zone exits, the types of passes that are made, forechecking, recovering pucks in defensive zone, all sorts of good stuff. And I'm going to bring up this quick layout this layout right here. Scoring chance contributions highlighted right here. Obviously, we don't have a big sample. Most players are, 40 to 80 minutes or something like that. Scoring chance contributions are just scoring chances plus assists on teammates' scoring chances. So far this season, Tim Stützle, 8th in the NHL. The only guys ahead of him are from the New Jersey Devils, obviously. Some of the top guys from Pittsburgh and Mika Zibanejad. Stützle has been incredibly involved in the offense so far for Ottawa. So maybe he can really do a lot here with DeBrincat and Giroux. Now, they don't have full power play correlation technically, but DeBrincat has been playing both halves of the power play quite a bit, as Alex Ovechkin does sometimes in Washington. So I don't really mind that Ottawa line here tonight. They're coming in, fairly cheap because Stützle's still, his shot rate's not high, so his price hasn't really gone up. 2 to 3% ownership. The problem is, Vegas doesn't take many penalties. I believe they're taking the fewest penalties of any team in the league right now. So it might be a little bit of a long shot with a team that's playing pretty well. But if you're playing 150, you have to consider the Stützle line going with DeBrincat tonight. On the Vegas side, I wrote up Jack article for the Power Plays article. Jack Eichel kind of started slow. I want to put that more or less in quotations because he still did manage 7 points in the first 6 games of the season, but he was playing under 17 minutes a night. He's up almost at 19:30 a night since Mark Stone joined his wing. That's 5 games now playing 19:30 a night, averaging 4 shots per game. Ottawa is better defensively this year, but still not an elite defensive team. So I think Eichel and Stone makes a nice 2-man stack here tonight. They're only coming in with about 5% ownership. I think that's just fine. So if you're asking me what I like most in this game, it's definitely Eichel, Stone, and Stevenson. I think Stevenson can be left off. He's definitely not the straw that stirs the drink, let's say, on that line. So Eichel and Stone, I think, makes the nicest 2-man in this game. On the blue line, Thomas Chabot has a decent price over on FanDuel. So I don't mind using Thomas Chabot in this game. He's down to 5,700, which is pretty reasonable. He's more expensive on DraftKings, and it is a tough matchup against Vegas, so it'll be more for FanDuel. I'll also mention Nikita Zaitsev from the Ottawa Senators. He's not really a great defenseman, but he was up around 20 minutes in their last game. He playing in, some sort of pseudo shutdown role. Vegas can generate offense. So where Zaitsev is min price on DK, don't mind him as a guy that could threaten for the block bonus here tonight. All right, let's get to our next game. We're moving along. We have Carolina going into Tampa Bay here tonight. Carolina has a 2.9 total. Tampa Bay rolling with a 3.1 total. Looks like most lines are going to be the same. The big news is no Victor Hedman again here for Tampa. He's going to be out. Mikhail Sergachev still running the top power play unit for the Bolts. He's been playing, 24, 25 minutes of late. So his ice time is definitely way up with Hedman out. And he's putting up some decent peripherals as well. But his price has jumped with it. Getting to the matchups, as always, we use line matching from Twitter. It's at line matching on Twitter. It's a subscription service separate from anything we have here at Stokastic. It's just something Josh and I use a fair bit when we're making our lineups. The way Tampa runs their lineups is that Paul and Stamkos line is going to get quite a bit of the top line for the Hurricanes. And that Paul and Stamkos line has been good defensively in a small sample so far this year. Only 1.5 expected goals against in their 65-ish minutes together. That is a pretty solid sample. They'll be going up against Sebastian Aho, Tara Vinen, and Seth Jarvis. It's been a slow start to the season for Seth Jarvis. Certainly not bad, but again, by those scoring chance contribution metrics I talked about earlier, not as strong as they were last season. So he's kind of got to pick up the play a little bit. Also, in Carolina's last game, it was a tight game, and they did mix up the lines, putting Aho out with Svechnikov in the third period. So, Tampa gets up a couple goals here. Maybe we see some Carolina line changes. Because of that very good defensive second line for Tampa, I'm not going to be on the Aho Jarvis line. It'd be more a Svechnikov, Natchez 2-man. I don't think you have to play Kotkaniemi at this point. He's really not a shooter. He doesn't earn a ton of minutes. He's basically just, a younger Jordan Staal at this point. Until he shows something else, I think 3,000 is fine. You can put him in if you need the roster spot, need to save some money, but he's definitely not a necessity at this point. That Carolina line has been very good this year. 2.9 expected goals for, only 1.5 against per 60 minutes. 3.6 actual goals. Martin Necas had a kind of a tough year last year. Definitely has been a bounce back this year. Again, by those scoring chance contributions, top 30 in the league, in the same range as guys like Crosby and Matthews and Braden Point. So, Necas certainly been very involved. His ice time reflects that. So I think Necas and Svechnikov is fine as a two-man, especially where Tampa Bay's penalty kill hasn't been very good this year. So I definitely don't mind taking a little bit of that two-man from Carolina, though, to be honest, there isn't a line stack that I'm running out to go and play out of this game here tonight. This kind of looks like it might be like a 3-1 game or something like that here. We do have a ton of games on the slate. So that's about it for me. Again, Sergachev, I think his price is fine. Kind of a tough matchup. Carolina's penalty kill is not as elite as last year, but still pretty good. But Tampa is generating the third most power play opportunities. So maybe him or Stamkos can get there in a one-off situation or something like that. Other than that, Jacob Slavin's putting up decent peripherals for Carolina. We could see some shots going back and forth in this game. His price is reasonable on DK at 4,100. So he's one of those, mid-range defensemen that I wouldn't mind using here tonight. All right, let's get to Washington and Detroit. Washington has a 3.3 implied goal total. Detroit has a 3.1 implied goal total. I mean, there's injuries abound on both sides here, of course. Detroit still without Tyler Bertuzzi, still out without Jacob Vrana. Washington still without Nicholas Backstrom and Tom Wilson. And John Carlson looks like he'll be out again here tonight. Eric Gustafsson has been running the top power play unit for Washington, so he makes a nice punt type option on the blue line here tonight. Some line changes for Detroit here. They did move David Perron to the top line with Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond. They've been good offensively in a small sample so far this year, but it's really the power play that is important in this game and with David Perron specifically. He was another guy I wrote up in that article that's free to read over at Stokastic.com. Just go to the NHL section. From 2019 to 2022, David Perron was inside the 90th percentile in expected goal and actual goals for impact on the power play amongst all forwards. He really, really helped out the St. Louis power play. And if you look at some of St. Louis's power play numbers this year, you can see that bear out. And he's brought that prowess over to Detroit. With him on the ice, Detroit is generating over 9.5 expected goals and 11 actual goals per 60 minutes with the man advantage. Now, with Perron on that top line, with with Raymond and Larkin, they are now fully correlated on the power play. And to bring up our top stacks tool here real quick, Detroit, one of the better leverage spots in our top stacks. Edmonton, Boston, Minnesota, the New York Rangers, and then Detroit. Now, not a high percentage to be a top two stack at 4.1%. Still amongst the top 15-ish lines on the slate. I don't think it's necessarily a bad spot here for that Detroit top line. They're very reasonably priced, which is a good thing on this slate because there are so many expensive options that we can go to use. And the Washington penalty kill just hasn't been very good this year. Mid-pack at best, being bailed out by their goaltending at times. As mentioned, I think Perron makes that power play a lot better. It certainly has been better with him on the ice so far this year. So Detroit 1 is one of my, no, I don't want to say one of my favorite lines because obviously, once we get to Edmonton and Florida and all that, that's where some of the favorite lines will come from. But I do like them as a much lower owned line than they should be on this slate. They probably should get a fair amount of minutes, though Perron hasn't been playing a ton. With all the injuries, you got to think at least Dylan Larkin is over the 20-minute mark. So if you're 20 maxing 150, anything like that, I think you have to at least consider putting Detroit 1 into your mix. Not really a lot for me here on the Washington side. They put Kuznetsov back with Ovechkin, Strome with Anthony Mantha and Marcus Johansson. There aren't really a ton of samples for that second line. The Washington top line with Kuznetsov, not really great this year. underwater by expected goal share. They're just above last year. They're really a line that lives and dies by percentages. And Ovechkin has been shooting less at 5-on-5 so far this season. So despite, what is a reasonable price and not a bad matchup, I think you're fine to just kind of avoid Washington 1. We do have them as a very over-leveraged line here tonight. So of everything in this game, I think it's the Detroit top line that I like the best. I'm even considering them in my 3 maxes here tonight. On the blue line, without Carlson, Nick Jensen has played 25, 26, and 21 minutes. So he's getting a lot of heavy minutes for Washington. So I don't mind Jensen on DK. His price is starting to come up, but he is definitely a threat for that block bonus. And of course, Eric Gustafsson, min price on DraftKings. If you need a super cheap blue liner, don't mind him. He's also just 3,700 on FanDuel, so he's really fine everywhere. I don't mind Moritz Seider on FanDuel either. Hopefully he can get there on the power play. I just think his price is a little bit too expensive on DraftKings right now. All right, let's get to our next one. Boston, 2.9 implied goal total. They're going into New York to face the Rangers. The Rangers have a 3.1 implied goal total as well. That is a 3.1 total for all 4 home teams we have talked about so far. The Rangers top line has been really, really good this year. We keep saying it every show. The problem is that they're not scoring. 4.6 expected goals generated per 60 minutes and 115 minutes together. Like, they're just generating a ton of offense so far this year. The problem is that they're shooting 3.7% as a trio. Obviously, once that starts to turn around and approaches 9-10%, this could be one of the higher scoring forward lines in the league. It's just a really tough matchup with Boston in town here tonight. That Rangers top line usually takes opposing top lines, and tonight that means Marchand, Bergeron, and DeBrusk. Going back to last year when they were assembled in the second half of the season, that top line for the Bruins, just 1.8 expected goals against per 60 minutes. They are a really, really tough defensive line to crack. So I don't think the top Rangers line is in my mix here tonight, although they do have pretty good leverage by our top stacks tool. They're not drawing much ownership right now, around 2 to 3% over on DraftKings. That's really not much at all. A little bit more over on FanDuel, 3 to 4%, but still just fine, obviously. I think more than anything, it'd be dipping down. If you're playing the Rangers, it'd be dipping down to the second line here. Zacha and Pasternak have not been great defensively together since Zacha was put on that line due to the injury with David Krejci. They are still generating a lot offensively, so I think these are 2 second lines that will end up trading chances in this game. That Rangers second line, 3.6 expected goals for per 60 minutes is really, really good. 3.4 actual goals scored, so they're actually finishing. And Alexis Lafreniere, again, back to the scoring chance contributions I was talking about earlier, amongst the best in the league, top 15, right in line with guys like Nico Hischier and Mitch Marner. So he's really helping out on that line. He's cheap. If you don't want a full stack, I think it would be one-offing Lafreniere that I would like the most here. On the other side, I just don't have a lot of interest in Boston here tonight. Not only are they facing Igor Shesterkin, which is always a problem, even though he hasn't been, his absolute best so far this season. The Rangers don't take a lot of penalties. They're amongst the least penalized team in the league. So I don't think this is a spot where I'm going to Boston. Somebody wants to play them because they're not coming in with all that much ownership. I don't mind that at all. But they are fairly expensive on FanDuel, approaching $24K, approaching $22K on DraftKings. There's not much ownership, so if they do blow them out of the water, you'll probably be one of the few people in your tournaments doing it. It just seems a really tough matchup given the lack of power plays that we're expecting in this game. So Rangers 2, if anything, for me out of this one. On the blue line, Brandon Carlo has been playing, 22 to 24 minutes at times. He's 2,600 on DraftKings. I don't mind him. I think this is a game where I play Trouba over Fox as well. Trouba is really great with peripherals, so he's more of a DraftKings option as well. But I just don't see the Rangers, the Boston penalty kill is still very good. will be better with Marchand back, obviously. So I don't think Fox's high price is really justified in this game. All right. I told you guys earlier we have a nice giveaway sort of through BetMGM, our sponsor. And what it is you get a risk-free bet and 2 months of Stokastic Platinum for free. All you have to do to get 2 months of Stokastic Plus Platinum and a $1,000 risk-free bet is sign up, make a deposit, and make your first paid wager at BetMGM. You just create a free Stokastic membership using the links below. You click the large BetMGM button after registering. Create a BetMGM account, deposit at least $10, and then you make your first paid bet. And your bet must settle in order to qualify. So it definitely has to go through. You do all that, and you'll receive instructions from the BetMGM Sportsbook to get your free 2 months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. So again, if you're new to BetMGM, just click through the link below to sign up for our Stokastic membership, and then go sign up for your BetMGM membership and deposit at least $10. You do all that, you can get 2 months free of Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to $1,000 risk-free bet when you do sign up. All right, let's jump to our next game. This might be the boredom du jour. We have the New York Islanders going into St. Louis to face the Blues. The Islanders have a 2.9 implied goal total. St. Louis sitting at 3.0. There has been some shakeups to the St. Louis lines. Noel Acciari jumped to the top line with Braden Shen and Ryan O'Reilly. That should certainly make for an interesting trio. On the second line, we have Ivan Barbashev with Vladimir Tarasenko and Pavel Buchnevich. We actually have seen them a bit before, especially last season. Down on the third line, Jake Neighbors with Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. So they're really trying to spread things out. We talked in our Discord in the last St. Louis game about how bad St. Louis's bottom six had been this year. So Thomas and Kyrou are on the third line now. So it seems like they're really kind of trying to spread things out and take a little bit of pressure off everybody by basically doing what the New York Islanders do and put some of their best players on all three lines. Now, Shen and Ryan O'Reilly, I say pretty much every show, but not really good defensive numbers together. Going back to last year, without the top players like Perron, like Buchnevich, like Tarasenko, 3.1 expected goals against, 4.8 actual goals against, and 160 minutes together for that St. Louis top line. They just have not been good defensively. They kind of got called out by their coach and by, Ryan O'Reilly called himself out actually after their last game. I think it was a 5-1 loss at home. So maybe they put in a bit of a better effort here, but, they're going up against the Barzal-Wallstrom line, which should not be too tough defensively in their own right. 3.1 expected goals against per 60 minutes, the same as the St. Louis top line. The difference being Ilya Sorokin in net for the Islanders. One of the best goalies in the league, off to a great start this year with a .935 save percentage. So despite the Islanders not being a great defensive team, Sorokin's there to bail them out. And, he makes a decent goalie play pretty much every night, tonight included. Getting to that St. Louis second line with Barbashev, Tarasenko, and Buchnevich, not really great defensively, 2.8 expected goals against, but generating 3.3 goals and 2.6 expected goals for per 60 minutes going back to last year. Not bad for those guys. And they're going into that Islanders second line of Nelson, Lee, and Beauvillier that has struggled defensively. 3.8 expected goals against this year, but again, because of Sorokin, only 2.5 actual goals against. I think Tarasenko, Buchnevich, and Barbashev are kind of in the best spot here tonight, but there's kind of a problem. One, Tarasenko's not shooting this year. His 5-on-5 shot rates has really tanked, which is a problem. And the other is the Islanders don't take a ton of penalties, so it's not as if he'll have a lot of opportunities to get there on the power play. And of course, there's still Ilya Sorokin to consider. So a really tough matchup all around for St. Louis when you consider the lack of power play opportunities that are likely to come and facing Ilya Sorokin. I think if anything here, I would just be kind of picking off, single guys. Like I think Ryan O'Reilly's price is cheap enough where you can use him. I think, Pavel Buchnevich is cheap enough where you can use him as a one-off. I just don't like any of the stacks here. Going up against Sorokin, going up against a team that does not give up very many power plays. On the flip side, I did have some interest in Barzal and Wahlstrom as a two-man. The problem is Wahlstrom only played 6 minutes last game. He was effectively benched. He's just gotten inconsistent ice time. He was 11, 12 minutes when the season first started, got up to 14, 15, 16 at times, back down here 6 minutes last game. Maybe they try to play him more to get him out of whatever funk they think that he's in. He is a big volume shooter, and he does get Jordan Binnington, who's off to a bad start again this year after a tough season last year. So ostensibly, I like Barzal and Wahlstrom. They do have good offensive numbers together going back to last year. I just worry that Wahlstrom is going to play like 8 minutes or whatever it was in their last game again. So, if you want to one-off Barzal, I think that's fine. If you want to risk it with Wahlstrom and Barzal, I think that's fine as well. Just be aware, Wahlstrom could be riding pine by the middle of the second period, and that could ruin a DFS night in a hurry. Getting to the blue line, not really much I like here. I was going through some of the recent ice time usage for the Islanders. And Noah Dobson's only been playing 18 to 19 minutes over his last 4 games. For a guy that relies on peripherals for fantasy value, that is pretty bad news. Like the Islanders already spread out ice time amongst defensemen as it is. Like guys don't play much more than 22 minutes a night. Being down at 18 or 19 and not being at the top of the list is a problem. If that keeps up here tonight, it's hard to see him paying off his fantasy value unless, he can manage a couple goals or a goal and assist or something like that. So I think it's Scott Mayfield I kind of like the best. He's been playing the most for the Islanders of late. His price is getting up there on DK. So I guess, you can kind of pass on him there, but, reasonable on FanDuel. Ryan Pulock would be another guy. Either Pulock or Mayfield are the defensemen that I like the most here. I am not playing Justin Falk at 7,000 whatever that he is on the two sites. 7,000 on DK. I think it's 78 on FanDuel. It's just an absurd price for him. He's just on a little bender. Congrats to anybody that played him when he was cheaper. Our next game, Seattle, 2.9 implied goal total going into Minnesota. The Minnesota Wild have a 3.6 of the stacks that I wrote up in the picks article. That's up for free to read over on Stokastic.com. And one of the reasons is because of their leverage. Now, we already talked about Boston, one of the best leverage lines on the slate. Edmonton we'll get to in a second. Their top line, also pretty good leverage. Right behind them is that Minnesota third line on DraftKings. They're second on FanDuel. So people aren't going to be playing a lot of Minnesota here tonight. The ownership should still be 6, 7, 8%, which I guess is kind of high for a 13-game slate. But this isn't really a bad spot here. What I wrote about in that Power Plays article is the Seattle goaltending is just a huge problem for this team again. They were at the bottom of the league last year by save percentage or next to last. They're 31st in the league again this year by save percentage. It's a pretty good defensive team. Their goalies just constantly let them down. The goalies will have good nights, and on those good nights, the DFS value obviously won't be there. But Minnesota's at home, getting Martin Jones in net for Seattle, it looks like, who's just returning. He was away on a family emergency basis. So, this is Seattle's third string goalie coming in. I do like that Minnesota top line / top power play here. Now, the top line hasn't been scoring much with Freddie Gaudreau there. They're also just shooting 3.2%, which is a huge problem. It's the power play where they're really making hay. Kaprizov is shooting a lot on the power play. Obviously, Matt Boldy on the power play is contributing there as well. That Eriksson Ek and Boldy duo has been good in a small sample so far this year. 3.2 expected goals, 4.4 actual goals per 60 minutes. Eriksson Ek is shooting a lot more on the power play. Matt Boldy has seen a big expected goals jump from last year. So I do like that Minnesota top line. If you want to leave Gaudreau out or leave Zuccarello out and put in a Boldy and put in an Eriksson Ek or something like that, I think that's perfectly fine. The Minnesota top power play unit, over 10 expected goals per 60 minutes this year. Just huge, huge numbers offensively. So yeah, I do like that Minnesota power play here. Seattle, a good penalty kill. Again, it's just a common refrain. Good defensively, goaltenders can't save a thing. So I do like the Minnesota power play here. On the Seattle side, Minnesota has not really been that great defensively so far this season. There are a couple of issues with Seattle. One, they said there may be lineup changes coming, especially with Jared McCann. He could be out on that third line, quote unquote third line that has Yanni Gordon, Brandon Tanev with them. So just watch maybe for some line changes in that Seattle game. I'll say it again, Bjorkstrand, Burakovsky, and Wenberg still is the line that I like the best. Bjorkstrand still shooting a lot, still waiting for that shooting percentage to turn around, 0% at 5-on-5. Obviously, that's not going to persist. When Bjorkstrand and Burakovsky really get going, Seattle's really going to start scoring a lot more. So don't mind that two-man as a duo. If you want to use Eberle and Schwartz, I think Eberle's a fair bit cheaper. So I think you're fine to go in that direction. But it's Bjorkstrand and Burakovsky that I like in this game. But more than anything, it's that Minnesota power play. Good leverage, bad goaltending, really good power play. That's where I am in this one. On the blue line, not really a lot I like for defensemen. Jared Spurgeon's price has started to climb to something a lot more reasonable. Kalen Addison, if you want to give additional power play exposure, I think is fine to use. He just doesn't put up much peripherals, so you're really relying on, at least a couple of assists, if not a goal here. Just be aware of that. I think Matt Dumba, playable on DraftKings at 3,500. Just let me take a little sip of tea here. And we'll move along to our next game. Montreal is going into Winnipeg. Montreal has a 2.5 implied goal total. Winnipeg has a 3.5 implied goal total. Winnipeg changed up their lines in their last game, and then they got beat. I think it was against Vegas. Vegas kind of ran them out of the rink, even though, the score was relatively close. So it looks like they're going back to the regular lines of Appleton, Scheifele, Connor, Perfidi, Dubois, and Wheeler. Mason Appleton may not play tonight. They said he has an illness. Somebody could move up in his place if he doesn't play. But he is, kind of expected to play. We'll just have to see how that shakes out at warmups. I wrote about it at another website where I write about season-long fantasy hockey, but not having Ehlers on that top line has really hurt the Winnipeg Jets' offensive capability. Kyle Connor's been shooting a lot less since they lost Ehlers, and it's because they're just not generating as much. They're only generating 2.4 expected goals per 60 minutes, 1.7 actual goals with Appleton on that top line. Really not good offensive numbers. He's just kind of a black hole there. Scheifele and Connor can't do it all themselves. So I don't have a problem, quote unquote, playing that Winnipeg top line. I just think there's going to be a ton of ownership against them here against Montreal, and they just haven't been playing well. It's one of those situations where, in a single entry /3 max, if they burn me, they burn me. But they just haven't been playing well offensively. And Montreal's top line is a little bit interesting to me here. They've moved Kirby Dach to the top line with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. Now, I wrote up Caulfield in that picks article as well. He's at nearly 4 shots per game on the season. He's on he would be on a 40 goal pace, even if he was shooting 13% instead of the 18% he actually is. But the thing that saves, but the reason why I like the matchup against Winnipeg is Winnipeg's just one of the worst defensive teams in the league. What is saving them is Connor Hellebuck. On the season, the Winnipeg Jets, bottom 5 in the league by expected goals against, one of 5 teams allowing more than 3 expected goals against per 60 minutes. The other 4 are the Ducks, Flyers, Coyotes, and Islanders. Not good company for Winnipeg, but they are getting .937 goaltending. If their goaltending doesn't bail them out, they stand a real chance of just getting 4 or 5 goals hung on them. So it's one of those situations where, we mentioned Montreal at low ownership in their last game. Good leverage again here tonight. Doc is on the power play with them, so that Montreal top line is fully correlated on the power play. And Winnipeg's penalty kill, much the same like 5-on-5, giving up a lot of chances, but being bailed out by the goaltending. If Connor Hellebuck's not on his game, Montreal could really pop a few goals here tonight. So Montreal's top line of Dak, Suzuki, and Caulfield, kind of in that Detroit top line realm for me, where I don't think you have to play them in a single entry or 3 max, but they should be considered, and especially once you get to 20-plus lineups. Winnipeg's just not a good team, flat out. And this is a good matchup for that Montreal top line. It's just whether Connor Hellebuck can kind of shut them down. On the Winnipeg side, I'd actually prefer going to like a Dubois one-off, or Dubois, if you want to put Connor with Dubois or something like that, or Winnipeg power play stack, because Montreal's penalty kill isn't very good. I wouldn't mind doing that. But these teams don't really take a lot of penalties, both in the bottom 7 for a time shorthanded. So even with Sam Montembeault in net, it looks like for Montreal, this isn't really a great, phenomenal power play spot for Winnipeg, let's say, and there is expected to be a lot of ownership. You guys have heard me talk about Odd Shopper before. Let's talk about Odd Shopper again. Make your best bets in 30 seconds or less with Odd Shopper. It has hundreds of bets featured daily all across the sporting spectrum: NFL, NBA, NHL, whatever you have. Whatever you need, Odd Shopper has. It gives you the edge you need, betting props and game lines across these sports and across all the legal sites in the States. You have expected win percentages, you have ROIs included, multiple projection methods to kind of change if you want to change your approach on Odd Shopper. It also features a parlay builder with optimized parlays and an arbitrage tool to identify risk-free bets you can make across all the legal sports books. So what are you waiting for? Just click the link in the video description below to sign up for free with Odd Shopper and start making smarter bets now. All right. Next game, Los Angeles Kings, 3.3 implied goal total going into Chicago. The Blackhawks have a 2.7 total. I don't know what it is, but the Blackhawks top line continues to have really strong projections. Our DraftKings projections have them at 33.7 points. To kind of put that into a frame of reference, it's about the same as the Rangers top line at home against Boston. It's higher than the Detroit top line that we talked about earlier in the show, and it's higher than the Stützle line that we mentioned in our very first game. I think, one reason for that tonight would be Los Angeles's let's say undisciplined play. They're taking the third most penalties in the league, giving up the third most power plays opportunities to the opponent. So Domi and Kane will probably play 19, 20, 21 minutes as they have been of late. Also get correlated on that top power play that could see a lot of opportunity here tonight, although the power play itself has not been very good for Chicago. Top line also not been very good. Athanasiou, Domi, and Kane, 3.1 expected goals against per 60 minutes so far this year, and it's been getting worse and worse with the passing games. Remember, first few games of the season when everybody thought Chicago was an improved defensive team? Not quite. Just clicking over YouTube, sorry to cut off, but saw that Niehaus super chat. Thank you, Niehaus, for that $2 super chat. Blues an absolute disgrace. I'm not going to argue with you there. Sorry, back to Chicago. that top line has been getting pounded more and more as the season is wearing on, and I think they're really starting to show the cracks defensively. Obviously, no Seth Jones either on the blue line, which means a lot more minutes for guys like Jared Tenorti or Jack Johnson, which obviously is not a great thing here. A line that has been getting better as the season has gone on is that Kings second line of Danault, Arvidsson, and Trevor Moore. They started slow, particularly defensively, but have really picked it up a lot of late. Danault and Trevor Moore, 17, 18 minutes each over their last 5 games. Victor Arvidsson has been shooting a lot more than he did through the first 4 or 5 games of the season. So that Kings second line coming in over leveraged a little bit, 4 to 5% ownership, but I think they're one of my more favorite filler stacks on the slate here tonight. One of the big reasons is that they'll face off or they'll avoid, a lot of that Chicago checking line with Taves and Philip Kurashev, which actually hasn't been bad defensively. But that would take me away from the Kings top line. I think, they're perfectly fine to use. Their ownership is very much in check. But it's the Kings second line that's in a really good matchup here. And I should also mention the Kings have really been spreading out their ice time on the power play. Over the last 5 games, only, about 45 seconds separating top from bottom on the power play. So that entire Kings second line is fully correlated on the power play. And they're drawing the most power play opportunities of any team here. And remember, Chicago taking a ton of penalties as well. So I do like the Kings second line quite a bit as a filler stack here tonight. If you want to go in on that Chicago top line, I'm not going to say no, but we're expecting close to double-digit ownership again on them. And it's another one of those situations where if they burn me, they burn me. On the blue line, with Seth Jones out, they've just been spreading around the ice time. Like, I think every defenseman has been between 17 and 21 minutes, since the Jones injury. So I don't think there's one guy I would really lean to and say, I think he's kind of a must play. Obviously, Caleb Jones running the top power play. Yeah, he's fine to use. There's just nobody that really stands out to me. On the Kings side, they are starting to spread out the ice time as well, except they have Drew Doughty playing a ton and then everybody else around 18, 19 minutes. I think Sean Durzee's fine, especially, if you want to slide him in with somebody from that Kings second line where they have that power play correlation. It is a very good power play matchup for them. So I definitely don't mind Sean Durze. At a reasonable price. He's another one of those mid-range defensemen I don't mind here tonight. Moving along to our next game, we're going to get to the New Jersey Devils and the Edmonton Oilers, as New Jersey is going into Edmonton after putting up what I believe was a 5 spot on Vancouver. They've really started scoring of late. Obviously, Edmonton just put up 7 goals against Nashville as well. Evander Kane would be somebody to kind of keep an eye on here. He was not at morning skate today for the Edmonton Oilers. I haven't seen an update other than that he wasn't at morning skate. So Stokastic members, be sure to check in chat to see what is happening with Evander Kane. It could just be a maintenance day and he'll be just fine, but it's something to monitor because that is a big hole on that Edmonton second line if something is happening here. Going head to head, this is an interesting game. I look back last year between these two teams faced each other twice. They scored 20 goals in those 2 games. These are 2 of the better offensive teams in the league so far this season. New Jersey's goaltending has been better of late. Mackenzie Blackwood in net. But these are 2 teams that can kind of generate offense at will. So I think there should be a fair amount of goals in this game as well. On the Edmonton side, I think I would just go to the top line. We're not showing much ownership on them here tonight. Under 5% as a trio over on DraftKings, even less over on FanDuel. Now, obviously, they are very expensive. So if you want to drop off, say, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I think you're fine to do that and then put on Evan Bouchard. Evan Bouchard jumped up to the top power play in their last game. I think he's jumped up to the top power play a couple times over the last couple of games. Also wrote him up in the Power Plays article. He's been skating more as well. His minutes have gone up about 90 seconds a game over his last 5 games. So that's obviously great news for him. Getting the power play time, also great news. He's a guy that loves to shoot, so more minutes are only a good thing. So if you want to leave off one of the expensive wingers, save some money, and just throw on Evan Bouchard, I think that's just fine. I would honestly probably rather play him than Tyson Barrie at this point. But obviously, you can't forget about including maybe Evander Kane if he does play. Leon Draisaitl, if you want to use him instead of Connor McDavid and save some money over on DraftKings, I think that's just fine as well. They're very similarly priced over on FanDuel, so not a big difference. But, if you want to save some money, going with like a power play stack for Edmonton, I think it's just fine. On the New Jersey side, it's back to that Bratt in Hughes line, putting up very good offensive numbers, even with Eric Holla there. And Hughes is still just shooting under 6% at 5-on-5. Like this line has really started to turn the tide offensively, and Hughes still isn't scoring a lot of 5-on-5. That's obviously not going to last too much longer. And Hughes and Bratt are both on the power play together. And the Edmonton Oilers are giving up are tied for the most time shorthanded this year with the Dallas Stars, giving up 4.5 power plays to the opposition on the season. If New Jersey gets 5 power plays in this game, they could really do some damage. So I do like the idea of using Bratt and Hughes in this game. Not much ownership either. We have that whole line coming in under 2% by our top stacks tool. On the blue line, like I said, I like Bouchard. I don't know if I'm into playing Darnell Nurse. I think he's fine because this could be a high-paced game, but his minutes have been going down. He's been down to about the 23-minute mark of late. And Nurse is a guy that thrives. His fantasy value thrives on peripherals. So 23 minutes as opposed to playing 26 minutes is a fairly big difference. So I think Bouchard is definitely the defenseman I like the most in this game. I'll also throw in Jonas Siegenthaler for one of those punt-type defensemen. He's been playing 20 to 21 minutes of late, can definitely get you that block shot bonus on DK. So Siegenthaler, one of the punt types that I do like here in this game. Next one, Nashville, 2.8 implied goal total. They're going into Calgary. The Calgary Flames have a 3.7 implied goal total. Looks like Jacob Markstrom is going for Calgary. Probably UC Saros for Nashville, though not confirmed just yet. Remember, Calgary changed up their line, so Jonathan Huberdeau skating with Nazem Kadri and Andrew Mangiapane. So that looks like a pretty good line to me, even though Mangiapane's not on the power play with them. Just Kadri and Mangiapane together, 3.3 expected goals, 3.1 actual goals per 60 minutes. Mangiapane, the best 5-on-5 expected goals rate of his career, personally. And adding Jonathan Huberdeau, one of the 3 or 4 best playmakers in hockey, should only help. I think that's a line that I would go to here tonight. They're not coming in with much ownership. We have them at 4% over on DraftKings. By FanDuel, we have them even lower, somewhere around 3 to 4%. So I think at least Kadri and Huberdeau makes a decent 2-man. I know Kadri's price has come up a lot, and the one thing we worry about with Calgary is ice time, but they do play their centers quite a bit, and Kadri has been playing 20-plus minutes since they switched to these new lines. So, I know Kadri is very expensive on DraftKings, coming in at $8,100, on FanDuel at $9,600. I think he's kind of passable at that price, but $8,100 on FanDuel for 20-plus minutes in a matchup against Nashville, I really don't mind it, especially where the Predators are giving up nearly 4 power plays per game to the opposition, amongst the 10 worst marks in the league. Nashville did put back together the Granlund, Forsberg, Duchesne line. They have not been very good this year, underwater by expected goal share, giving up 4.7 goals against, only scoring 2.8. Now, they're all on the top power play unit, and, we do like that power play correlation. But Calgary has had a pretty good penalty kill so far on the season. They give up above average power play opportunities, but a good penalty kill. So nothing for me really from the Nashville side. It's Calgary one I like in this game, where Nashville does take a fair amount of penalties. The Nashville penalty kill, at least by expected goals, near the bottom of the league, but UC Saros is kind of bailing them out. So Kadri, Mangiapane, and Huberto is what I like here. On the blue line, I think Roman Yossi's price on FanDuel is perfectly fine. On DraftKings, I think he's playable, but still, but getting pretty expensive at $8,500. He's much cheaper on FanDuel. I think for a cheap defenseman on DraftKings, it'd be Noah Hannafin on the Flames side. He's starting to shoot. He's starting to get ice time. It's just a matter of time before he kind of breaks through. So the two guys I like in this game are Hannafin on DraftKings and Yossi on FanDuel. Just note there may be no Chris Tanev for the Flames. So if he's out, Hannafin may get even more ice time. Don't forget to take advantage of the risk-free BetMGM offer. Just click that link below. Register for Stokastic, a free Stokastic membership. Register at BetMGM. Deposit at least $10 and play. And you can get a free bet up to $1,000 and 2 months free of Stokastic Platinum. Just click the links below. And before we get too much further, please like and subscribe. They really do help us along, and click the bell to get notifications. All right, we've got 3 games left. We've got to burn through them. Anaheim going into Vancouver. Anaheim is carrying a 2.7 total. Vancouver at 3.4. Spencer Martin looks like he's going to be starting for Vancouver, which I think is kind of important here because Martin's actually played well to start the season, whereas Demko has not. You can't put all the goals on Demko. Vancouver's looked, pretty meager defensively at times. But it's the Vancouver second line I like. I wrote up Elias Pettersson in the Power Plays article. Their power play has been a little bit better. The Kuzmenko-Pettersson line has been very good at 5-on-5 this year, 3.5 expected goals, 5.7 actual goals in their minutes together. So that's including Ilya Mikheyev. So I do like the Vancouver second line. Might come in a little bit higher owned than we like, but Anaheim's truly one of the worst defensive lines in this league. On the Anaheim side, I don't mind a Troy Terry one-off here. I do worry about ice time with him, but he's far and away the best offensive player for the Ducks, and he's had a huge expected goals impact so far this season for them. So if you want to dip down to some Anaheim, I don't mind one-offing Troy Terry here tonight, but that's probably it. On the blue line, I guess Cam Fowler's playable now that he's getting some power play minutes with Jamie Drysdale out, but honestly, just not a lot I like on the blue line on either side. Quinn Hughes, if you're doing some sort of Vancouver second line or top power play stack or something like that, but that is it. Our next game, Dallas going into Arizona. Dallas has a 3.5 implied goal total. Arizona at 2.5. I'm not even going to bother talking about the Coyotes. Dennis Gurianov on the second line for Dallas. That line hasn't been very good there with them. Well underwater by expected goal share. About way below league average by expected goals generated. They're only playing 14 to 15 minutes. So I'm really not a big fan of that Dallas second line here tonight. Coming in with much more ownership than we'd like. It is right back to the Dallas top line here. Their top line, 4 expected goals generated per 60 minutes this year, 5.6 actual goals generated. The power plays look very good with Miro Heiskanen, who is definitely playable again here tonight now that he's back. 10.1 expected goals with the man advantage for the Stars here. Arizona's penalty kill hasn't been, awful, let's say, but they are giving up amongst the most power plays in the league, nearly 4 per game. Should give the Stars lots of opportunity here. And the ownership is in check, just under 10% over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, a little bit higher, but still fine at 12 to 13%. So Dallas won, do like them, like Heiskanen on the blue line as well. Final game, Florida going into San Jose. This is another festival, as we might say around here. San Jose just really not looking that great defensively this year. Goaltending has certainly let them down at times. The Sharks, middle of the road defensive team, but again, it's the goaltending that it continues to be an issue. On the Florida side, we're showing a fair bit of ownership on the Florida top line, but really good numbers for Barkov and Tkachuk together so far this season. 6 expected goals, 7.9 actual goals, playing 21 to 22 minutes. Barkov, he's going through a shooting slump and shooting percentage down around 3%, which is a problem here. Now, the top line is very expensive on FanDuel, over $23,000, less on DK, where Verhaeghe is fairly cheap. I think a nice switch off here is putting Anton Lundell in instead of Barkov. Saves a lot of money. Lundell gets that power play one time. You can put like Lundell, Kachuk, and Reinhardt together, something like that, to make a reasonably priced Florida stack. Neither of the San Jose lines particularly strong defensively so far this year, especially that second San Jose line with Logan Couture. Logan Couture is just not shooting at all so far this season. He's actually shooting less than a lot of defensemen are. Like, he'd be like 50th percentile amongst defensemen at 5-on-5. It's just really, really bad. And Thomas Hertl actually hasn't been much better. So I'm out on the Sharks here. I'm in on the Panthers top line / Panthers power play. San Jose has a 960 save percentage on the penalty kill, which is way, way too high to sustain itself. And Florida's power play has looked much better with Brandon Montour there than it did when they were running 5 forwards. So of everything in this game, Florida top line / power play. Mario Ferraro on DraftKings, super cheap. He is definitely could be in line for the block bonus here tonight. Coming up after us, we have back-to-back No House Advantage shows. Thursday Night Football with Pete and Jeff, and then Thursday Night NBA with Terry and Gundacker. And then you have your 2 hours of NBA with a deeper dive and live before lock from 5 to 7 Eastern, and then the NFL Showdown live before lock after that. We got to get out of here. I'll give you my hat trick pick for tonight. Kind of chalky, but I don't care. I'm going with Matthew Tkachuk from the Florida Panthers. In goal for a cheap option, cheap-ish option on both sites. I like Sergei Bobrovsky, and I don't mind Anton Forsberg on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, Jordan Binnington from St. Louis has been very bad, but he's super cheap on FanDuel. So if he can just kind of squeak out one decent game, could have a nice night. I also like Igor Shesterkin on DraftKings. All right, we are out of here. That is your 13 games. Josh and I will be back Saturday for a full show. Until then, good luck tonight, everybody, and let's go crush some hockey.